All right,
Nice.
we're recording everywhere, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. It feels awkward using this because you don't have all that extra, uh,
Stuff, yeah, like open on the desktop. I know.
all the.
It's actually
Paraphernalia.
kind of cool. Yeah.
It's way cool. I just wish the sound quality was a little bit better. It feels. You go back and you listen to it, and it's really heavily gated and really compressed. If it wasn't for
Hmm.
that, man, I'd use it for everything because it
Well,
does.
win some, lose some. That's the way
You
it
don't.
works.
You don't have to do any noise filtering, or you don't have to line up for time or any of that stuff. You could basically just send it out the way it is, but it helps to compress it a little bit for volume. Anyway, Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 41. I'm Bill.
I'm Eric.
And I imagine,
No Leo today. We're recording on an
yes,
off day because of the
yes, yeah.
American
This is
holiday.
alleged some alleged holiday that you have in America. Don't understand it.
Like we
It,
needed a
it, it,
day to stuff our faces and celebrate the fact
yeah.
that we're.
Hey, say what you will, man. That is my favorite meal of the entire year.
Is it really?
So do you guys not
Oh,
have turkey on Christmas as well?
We do. Um,
no, I
Okay.
don't.
well,
We always did
Okay.
ham.
I,
Yeah.
I I think probably traditionally the answer to that question is probably a safe yes.
Okay.
Normally we don't know to be. I think we have, but yeah, I usually try to go with something. I think my mom, uh, my birth mom, she'll make a roast beef or something. That's what I'm kind of looking forward to. I like that better.
Mhm.
This year,
Okay.
the wife
Because
made.
turkey is the main thing for Christmas in the UK.
It's not like a
Gotcha.
goose or something like that, like Dickens.
If you're really posh, like you're the royal family, then maybe a
Oh,
goose
because we
or
got geese
something like that. But
everywhere.
but yeah, but for everybody else, it's turkey.
Okay.
My mum once made because we don't really celebrate Christmas, but my mum did once makes a turkey biryani, which is quite nice actually.
Sounds
You
good.
know.
One of the best
Yeah, sounds
Christmases
great.
I had was my sister is Jewish, and we went. She lives in Kentucky. We went down to her house and we celebrated this. I'd never done this before. It was like a split Christmas Hanukkah thing where we exchanged gifts and ate like a cross section of Jewish and traditional American food, and that was just ridiculously decadent. Buffet style. A lot of stuff I'd never tried before. I had heard of, but I had never tried. But that was a lot of fun. I've never
It's like
done.
chicken livers and stuff like that, or
No, God, no. It was more. Oh, I knew you were gonna ask. I knew somebody was gonna ask.
don't worry about it. It's okay if you don't.
Uh,
I wouldn't go into. I know there's a certain number of foods. It's like the seven something. I can't remember what it is right now, but yeah, I've heard
well,
of that tradition.
she does not
Isn't there
eat.
something to do with horseradish and all this unleavened bread
Yeah,
and all
there's
that?
some.
There was some unleavened bread to it, but there was
Yep.
a soup with big old matzo ball or something in it, and that was pretty good because
Hmm.
it was bread. They can make a whole Jewish people can make a whole meal out of bread, and I can dig it. I'm here for it.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, they don't eat uh, certain types of meats. They don't eat. They won't eat a cheeseburger. What'd she say? She won't eat a cheeseburger because it is.
It's meat and milk in the same meal.
Yeah, you're
That's why.
drowning. You're drowning
So,
a cow in
so
its
I
mother's
actually know where
milk.
this comes from. So I actually know where this comes from. It comes from a. It used to be a practice, I think, at the time of the ancient Egyptians when the Israelites were supposed to be there, that they would boil a, like, half in milk. So it
Oh,
was. So that's where it started off, the separation between meat and milk. And so
uh,
that's why if you go to real like Orthodox Jewish households, they'll have two separate sinks, two separate sets of plates, and they'll never, some of them apparently, I mean, I don't know, but will even like leave some time. Like I don't know if they drank some milk, for example, they'd wait an hour or two before they ate any meat because they didn't want it to mix in the
oh,
stomach. And
that's interesting.
so yeah, so that's where it comes from.
Yeah, and of course they don't eat uh, pork and ham and things like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, well,
For
yeah, I don't either. As a Muslim, we don't eat pork. So,
uh, that's actually an interesting because I've got a couple friends that are Christian that don't eat pork for a lot of the same reasons that the Muslims and Jewish don't eat it. So that's kind of a thing that kind of carries over to a lot of.
yeah, I've read quite a lot of interesting stuff about this. I really have. You know, there was one Hebrew scholar who used to say that it was because pigs were, of all animals, the pigs were the most like human beings. And so that's where the prohibition
I've
came. The
heard that
idea
one.
that, yeah, the idea that, because and from a medical perspective, there are things, liver transplants do work in human beings. For example, you used to get heart valves that are made from porcine tissue. There was for a while insulin was made. It was pork derived. Because there does seem to be some kind of physiological similarity. That's before we even get into the kind of psychological similarity. Like Churchill said, a pig looks at a man and sees an equal. You know, and so
He might
but
be
yeah, no,
right.
it did. No, no, no. It is interesting. It is interesting. But yeah,
I
I
just
mean,
wonder how many people actually understand what it is, or if they're when you got somebody that is so like staunchly against eating something like pork or that, how many of them actually understand what it is that they're doing?
true.
Because
But then it's the nature of faith, isn't it? That it is a leap into the unknown, isn't it? And I say this as a believer, and if you believe in something, there's a difference to kind of it being proven to you. Because like people like to say, "Where's the evidence? Where's this? Where's that?" And it's like there is evidence, and I can't talk about it, and we can discuss and whatever. But at a fundamental point, you have to take a leap of faith. Hence the name, hence the phrase, leap of faith.
but you have some
You know.
understanding of what it is you believe, though,
Oh yeah,
and
hundred
maybe
percent.
the
You need to know why, but then the why it also okay. So this is going well off topic, isn't it?
hmm,
Um, I mean, I often say, like, even when my kids say to me, why are we Muslim? Is it just because we're born in? I'm like, no, I think it's the best theory that fits the facts that I see, right?
hmm.
And then once you then accept certain principles, then the logical conclusions of that have to be followed, right? So, for example, if I believe that a particular book is the word of God, then even if I can't prove every single little bit in that book, because I've taken the totality of it to be true, I'm now bound to follow it. Do you see what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, Things like that. I mean, we can get really deep if you want, but I mean, that's the way I look at things. And then once there are, or like for example, if I believe that, or like say Jewish people, let's just talk about someone else rather than just me for a minute. If Jewish people, for example, believe that God revealed the Old Testament to Moses on Mount Sinai, if that's what they believe, then that means that book then has to be followed, right? Now, if you then find stuff in that book which looks a bit weird, right? You then either have to say, well, it's the spirit of the law that we have to take rather than the letter of the law or whatever it might be, but you still have to accept it in some way. You can't selectively say, well, yes, it happened, but this isn't it. Or do you see what I mean? Then it becomes then there's a conflict in your own mind. Do you know what I mean? So
You can't
that's
pick and
the
choose what you believe out of it.
yeah. There's certain things that go with it. So as an example, okay, let's get to something technologically related for a change,
Right.
right? If you are a believer in the ideas of free and open source, the idea that the best code is one that is open source, that there's many eyes looking at it, and it's the most secure, and all that sort of stuff, right? Then it kind of follows that you will end up using those kinds of software, even if you're on a proprietary platform. So I might have a Windows device, but I might still use LibreOffice on it, right?
Yeah.
Or the fact that I do use Linux, or the fact that, for example, for me personally, I mean, I know it's not true for everybody, but for me personally, I don't like the very closed nature of the Apple ecosystem, and because I've got these ideas of what software should be. It should be free. It should be open source. It should give your stuff should belong to you. You should be in control of the data. You should be in control of how this thing works. And so if I come across something which works very well and from a pragmatic view might be very useful, best tool for the job and whatever, I'll feel a bit of a conflict in the sense that, okay, I know that Microsoft Office is the best for this, but I don't want to use it. I'd rather use LibreOffice. Do you see what I mean? There's certain things that kind of flow from having a particular viewpoint.
So do you feel that same conflict when you're using something like Windows, but you're using the open source tools on top of that? And
Well, I feel less of it. Because I feel to myself that, okay, I'm at least there. I mean, I suppose it's also a question of how strongly do I believe in free and open source. I'm not a Stallman-esque,
no, me neither.
I a hard fundamentalist type, everything must be free and open and, compile your own kernel type thing. I'm not that. But if I was, then I can see how somebody would not want to use Windows. And even if they did use Windows, would prefer to use some open source software on top of it.
But I wonder if we feel that at all. Is it because we listen to Linux podcasts, we listen to these conversations where people are talking about the moral, I guess, implications behind these things, or would we even think about those things if it wasn't for the fact that we partake in the conversation about the software and that?
So here's the question then. If the three of us weren't on Linux podcasts talking about this, right? Mincast, this show, Eric, I know there's some other couple of other shows and whatever. Would we suddenly be using Windows or Mac OS?
Probably not, but I mean, if I bought a new machine and it had Windows on it, I don't know that I'd be so quick to erase Windows off of that just because I felt like I was doing something wrong.
No, I don't think it's about necessarily you feel that you're doing something wrong, but it doesn't sit right with you.
Or
Right?
well,
So,
okay,
I'll give the example of, remember my multiple experiments with Apple. That I had that whole iPad as a computer challenge, and then I bought an M1 MacBook Air as well because everybody talked about how great the M1 chip was and stuff like that. And I just got annoyed with it. And the things that annoyed me were the things like, why can't I change this? Why can't I change that? Why do I have to behave? Why do I have to do things the Apple way? I can do whatever I want. I am my own person. I have my own device that I've paid for. I should be allowed to do what I want with it. If I want to change the way the operating system looks, I want to be able to do that. If I don't want to, that's fine as well, right? And I just couldn't get along, even though that hardware was the second best laptop. Now I'll say it's the second best laptop I ever had, but that, it was one of the best from a hardware perspective, battery life perspective. It was definitely was optimized, right? I just couldn't get along with the Apple ethos. I couldn't get along with Mac OS. I'd thought that this was just because I didn't like iPad OS or iOS, but it bled through into using Mac OS as well. It's like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why can't I just copy from here to there? Why do I have to do it this way? Why do I have to do it that way? And I remember having a friend of mine saying, no, but if you learn the Apple way of doing it, you'll realize that it's the proper way of doing it. And then you kind of go, okay, now this sounds like a religion to me. You're doing it wrong. You have to do it the proper way. And if you don't, and then you realize that their way is the right way. It's like, okay.
But there's certainly something to be said for people who are not technology enthusiasts, who really just need to know how to use something and then to have sort of a consistent standard across all their devices. And I think really that's the magic that Apple brings. It's not serving us.
No,
we are
true.
not the target audience. And I've said this, I have a friend that I've told this to many times where he says to me, like, why do you use Linux? And he's an avid Linux user. He's an admin, like it's how he makes his living. But he says, why do you do that to yourself? Why do you invest the extra time? Why do you? And the truth is, it's because I know about Linux. I I've said to him, like, I wish I was, ignorance is bliss. I wish I didn't know. I wish that I could just use Windows and be happy with it, or use Mac and just be happy with it. Just accept it for what it is. Not even think about the fact of customizing this or controlling that or being able to do things, exactly how I want them, which is what something like Linux gives you. And if I didn't have that knowledge, then I could just be happy. I could just accept things for what they are and just use it. But because I know about Linux, because I've used my computers this way for 20 years now, I can't ever be happy. I try, like you said, I've tried. I mean, so the Latitude tablet that I bought, I just like Bill said, I keep the Windows partition. I will dual boot it, and so I'll put Linux on it, and that's what I've done is to have a multitude of Linux distributions running on there over time just to play around with things. But that Windows partition is always there, and why? Because that system was built originally to use Windows, and there's pieces of hardware like the webcam, the fingerprint reader, like things like that that only work on Windows. Those are minor things. I don't need the webcam. I can always hook up an external one if I absolutely had to. But the truth is, like, that piece of hardware was built to work with Windows. And I just actually today booted into Windows for the first time in probably 3 months and had all these updates to do. And it literally was like an hour of just sitting there letting it do whatever the hell it was doing, And to me, that's unacceptable. Like, I'm like, this is exactly why I could never use this machine with Windows is unbearably slow. But I run any of the Linux distribution on it, and it's magically an amazing piece of hardware.
So
So that's
it's one of these things of once you've seen. Okay, I'm going to use more
yeah.
religious
No, I mean, it's
this
once
imagery.
you know, yeah,
Imagery. Once you've seen the promised land, you can't not see it. You
right.
can't unsee it. Once you get a device and you go to yourself, this thing has 32 gigs of RAM and this thing has 7 cores and this, that, and the other, and it still takes 2 minutes to load. This is not right. Yeah, I know that if I was to put on any Linux distro, even, and especially if I went for a lightweight one, or any of them, it would fly. I know that. And because I know that, I'm less tolerant to the fact that, Windows is just a slow, buggy mess, in certain scenarios. Says the man who is still using Windows on another machine. But I mean, but as I said, yeah, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Yeah. Same thing actually slightly with macOS to an extent, in the sense of once you see good UX, you can't unsee it. And so, for example, that little experiment with macOS really made me appreciate GNOME and KDE a lot more, and made me less tolerant of the so-called traditional XFCE, Mate. I know that they work really well, and I know they're great for low-end hardware and stuff like that, but I could never use it myself because I've now seen how good UX and fluid animations look like, and so I can't
The thing that
unsee that.
the the thing that consistently surprises me or amazes me, or however you want to say it, is I look at something like macOS and Windows, and those are two of the richest companies in the world with literally thousands of developers, right? And then you put something like KDE or GNOME or any of the desktop environments on Linux, and the level of completeness in terms of like a feature, completeness is really unbelievable. Like how mature and functional these small teams of developers have
Mm.
made a desktop environment. And to the point where, again, depending on your perspective, I think that, something like Plasma or GNOME or like any of these desktop environments are so perfectly optimized and so like almost like wonderfully thought out that, they have done things that somehow seem to be impossible for Microsoft or Apple to achieve on their desktops.
I think the benefit that KDE and GNOME might have that uh, Microsoft might not have or might not be tapped into is the direct pipeline of communication between the users and the developers.
Good
The
point.
developers of these projects are by and large approachable. You can communicate with them when you have problems. You can talk directly with them. If you have
and
ideas, you
and
can
they're
talk.
open to it as
Yeah,
well, and they're open to it. You get the feeling that if you were to go to Apple and say, here's a suggestion, they'd kind of go, no. And then,
Yeah.
oh, why am I having
if
this
you got an
problem?
answer at all, if it didn't
Yeah,
just
what would that,
Right. Well,
or
you're never
the
gonna get one. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, or the classic Tim Cook thing of, why is it I can't send pictures to my mom on Android? Buy your mom an iPhone. It's that mentality, isn't it? It's our way or
100%.
the highway.
Yep.
You like it, great. You don't like it, you can
But I
on your
think
bike to the
Right.
gym.
like Eric mentioned a little while ago, I mean these platforms are more built to provide a predictable and cohesive experience for people that just want to fire this thing up and get at the thing that they want to go and do. And you're non-tech enthusiast kind of person, which is kind of hard. It's really hard to imagine being one of those people for somebody like us. It is.
Right.
Yeah. Because I've tried. I have genuinely
It
I
is
have tried.
difficult to like put yourself in that headspace.
Yeah.
But those people, they do not give a shit about things like desktop environment or Wayland or Pipewire or any of that stuff that we think is so interesting.
And that's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
This goes back to your original question of, are we only interested in this stuff because we're doing this Linuxy stuff? And it's like, because we've seen the promised land, we can't unsee it, right? I'm not saying Linux is the promised land, I'm saying, but the idea that once you've seen something, you can't, and we're that type of people, while other
Right.
people are just like, I don't care, man. I just want to fire this up, do this, and put it away again, and that's it. And that's fine as
Mhm.
well. That's fine as well.
yeah,
Well,
As I
again,
said, but I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I've tried
so
to be that guy, but I'm not that guy.
I look around the table. So yesterday is a good example, right? There's 15 people, mostly family, a couple family friends, and everybody's using their phones to show pictures and do these different things. Everyone except for my family has iPhones.
yeah, yeah.
So the three of us, my wife, my daughter, and myself, have Android. Everyone else has iPhones. And none of them are technical people. Now, my wife and my daughter tangentially are technical people just because I'm part of their life. And I do things in our house and in our technology that no normal person's ever going to do. No one has their own, network configurations and setups like we do. And no one has, you know, servers running in their closets and like all of the things that we're doing that literally no
Reverse
one else does.
proxies and
Yeah. And I mean,
Okay,
so, but
let
it
me
makes
say,
perfect sense for all those, for those 13 people or the 12 people that are using Apple products. That makes perfect sense for them because they don't have to think about
yeah,
anything.
I've got
They
the
give them
exact same
Apple
thing.
their money and they get their consistent, mollycoddle. Like they get exactly what
And they
they've
get a
gotten.
quality
I mean,
device to be absolutely fair.
to be absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And they are supported for many, many years. I mean, my father-in-law is using a phone from, 7 years ago. I mean, who knows how long that thing's been running, and it keeps going. It does exactly what he needs it to do. He knows how to do the 5 things on there that he knows how to do. Nothing challenges him. He doesn't have to use any of the advanced features. There's never anything shoved in his face, and he's happy with it. And so are the other 12 people.
So can I say a contrary scenario, right?
Please.
Because I think what you're describing is very true of America. It's probably true of the UK as well. You go to India, it's the exact opposite. Everybody's
Mhm.
got an Android. Even people I know who had iPhones have switched to Android because everybody uses Android. And let's be honest, in India is a country of 1.4 billion people, so that's a lot of people, and yet it's also, whilst there is a large middle class and people are getting money, it's still in very many areas a poor country, and yet everybody's got Android. Are those people tinkerers? No, half of them probably can't even read English, and they have to have it in their language. And that's exactly, and they're not doing any tinkering, they're not doing anything like that. But
I was going
Android,
to add to what Eric was saying. Now, if I went to my family, like tomorrow, I've got my family's function. It's going to be exactly the same. All of the people, I don't want to say well-to-do, but all of the people in my family that have above average incomes, my brother and his wife, and then a lot of them, they've all got iPhones. The ones that don't are the people that I don't want to say they're not as well off, but they're not well off to the point where $1,000 for a phone is an acceptable thing to spend money on. A couple of
They're
things
going to
about
take the
India.
carrier option,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the thing is, you can get a $60
right.
Android. You can't get a $60 iPhone.
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
that is true, and you're very much correct about that, and that's part of what I was on about. That it's part of it to do with the price and the differences in income and stuff like that. However, here's an interesting fact for you. So last time I went to India, went to visit a lot of my in-laws and stuff like that. Quite a few of them actually live in the Gulf, and they're like expat workers, as you would say. Some of them are actually quite well to do. One's a dentist, another one's a doctor, another one's a senior manager in Vodafone in Dubai. You know, they've all got Androids. They've got expensive Androids. They've got expensive Androids. They've got
Well,
they've got a Galaxy Z Fold 5, or they've got an Oppo Find X, whatever. But they've still got Androids.
I was going to ask: is Apple pushing their product line? Are they pushing the marketing in India the way they do?
Oh
Wasn't
yeah,
there a thing in India where that has to be
everywhere.
manufactured? They can't be manufactured in China. Like they have to manufacture it in India, and that's part
Uh,
of why Apple has a problem with
yeah, but
market
most of the
penetration.
but most of the brands are Chinese that are there, and Samsung is not assembled in India. I'll tell you that for a start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The reason,
that's what I figured.
the reason is that you get to this kind of critical mass, right? And once you get to this kind of critical mass of this is what everybody's using, this is what everybody just starts using. If you're non-technical, if everybody's using an iPhone, you will use an iPhone. If everybody's using an Android, you'll use an Android. That's
That's
basically what it is.
interesting.
Yeah, and even the people that I know, for example, I mean, I remember famously, my wife's first smartphone was an iPhone, right? And then when it came to renewing that, this was an iPhone 4, whatever, yeah? I said to her, okay, so what phone do you want next now that your contract deal is up? And she goes, I want Android. Why? Because my brothers and sisters have all got Android. I was like, okay.
Some of it too is just what you've used. So my wife has always used Samsung, just always has. And so I had iPhones over the years. I would sort of dabble and get an iPhone now and then. And she would pick it up and just be completely lost. Like she just would. And you'd think, how is that? That's so counterintuitive because Apple's supposed to be the easy device to use. But if you're an Android user and a non-technical Android user, picking up an iPhone
It's
is
tough.
actually challenging.
Yeah, it's a completely
Yes,
different.
you have to learn the Apple way of doing things, like I was saying before.
Right.
You have to learn their way of doing things, and then if you start complaining about why can't I do it this way, it's like this is the Apple way. You like it or you lump it.
So there's a cultural aspect here to why people end up with iPhones with.
Well, the other thing too with an iPhone that I think is a little obnoxious is someone like in a position like someone like my daughter. A younger person that doesn't have an iPhone is a bit of an awkward thing in many cases, and not all cases, but so when she has her phone with her, almost all of her friends have iPhones. And so it's just like, she's the green text versus the blue text. And there's this sort of elitist aspect or cultish in a way where it's like, of course everyone has an iPhone. And if you don't have an iPhone, like, are you poor?
Yeah,
like, why don't you have an iPhone?
I've heard that before. And so I've asked, and I ask often because I want to know if there's a point at which this happens in school, because I've got kids in high school, late in high school, early in high school, and then I've got one still getting ready to go into middle school. And I've asked about this because I've heard about this thing on multiple other podcasts, and I've yet to actually see it be a thing around here. So I wonder if that's
Okay.
a regional concept, because obviously
I
nobody in
think
my
I
house.
think it all depends on whether you use iMessage, and the thing is that outside of certain markets, right, WhatsApp rules everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. We're the only
it,
country that uses SMS.
yeah. I mean, even the UK,
Yep.
which has had SMS for a long time, nobody uses SMS. We all have it, but nobody
Why
uses
would
it.
you? It's
Yeah,
the
everybody just
worst,
uses
least
WhatsApp.
secure protocol for messaging. You know, it's the
Yeah,
least featureful.
everybody
It's
uses
the
WhatsApp to the extent that everybody rings on WhatsApp as well. And it's like it's sometimes strange to even get a normal phone call now because everybody's rang you on WhatsApp. So I think this is quite particular to the States. I suppose you could say that it's Apple being very clever at the beginning and kind of locking people in at the beginning. I do also think it's a sad indictment of any culture that what color bubble you have in a text message has a bearing on your social life. And
well,
I just think something has gone wrong in culture if this is what we've
but
got
you know
to.
how kids are. That's the same thing
Well, I
with
do know how
sneakers.
kids are.
Like if you don't
Yeah,
have Jordans
yeah,
or like
true.
the right
Yeah.
sneaker.
I
Interesting
asked
thing
my
about that's interesting thing about you were saying about iPhones. Interesting that my daughter is not getting a smartphone anytime soon. But she has got a smartphone, but it's literally only in the house and it's parental controls and all that. And even then, she does all sorts of shit. But anyway, a point I was trying to say was she was complaining that it was an Android and all of her mates had iPhones, right? And it's like you're 11 years old. If the parents are giving their kids iPhones at 11 years old, I'm more worried about the
oh,
parents.
but they
Anyway,
absolutely are.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
So then I said to her, you know what? I can make your Android phone look like an iPhone. Launches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, right? And I made it look like an iPhone, made it behave like an iPhone. I didn't use Nova Launcher, but there's a whole bunch of these launchers in there on the Play
Yeah.
Store
Oh yeah.
that you
Mm-hmm.
can use.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I did
Yep.
that. And anyway, about 6 hours later, I said, so how are you finding it? And she goes, oh, I can't stand it. I'm getting rid of it. I've got rid of the launcher. I've gone back to the stock launcher. Oh, really? Yeah. So that's what it's like using an iPhone. Oh, yeah, I don't like it. Okay. I just
Yep.
thought that was interesting.
My 11-year-old daughter does not have a phone. She does, however, have a 10-inch tablet that she carries around everywhere with her.
Can I have a rant here now at this moment in time?
Rant away.
I try to be a decent parent. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I try to be a decent parent. I'm also someone who knows technology. I also know how technology can go wrong. I'm now on to third child entering teenage years, so I thought I would have learned something by now about how to deal with teenagers.
Go on then.
And one of the things that I learned was, if you are going, you shouldn't give them a smartphone. Give them a smartphone only as a last resort. Go on as long as you can before giving them a smartphone.
Yeah.
And then when you do get said smartphone, you put loads of limits on it and stuff like that. And it switches off after half an hour, or you can check a family link. All these kinds of tools which I've looked into, and this, that, and the other. Every single one of my freaking kids, yeah, has somehow messed up with their mobile phones. Yeah, the first one messed up by being a boy and shall we say, sending risque messages between friends of women in interesting positions. The second one, managed to buy loads of stuff on Play Stores and stuff like that, and without us realizing that he was spending the money and this, that. And now my daughter has managed, even with every single parental control that I can think of, 2 hours lock-in, checks everything like that. She's managed to have a YouTube channel for the last 8 months with 100 videos, which we then got called into the school to talk about.
The thing about YouTube, it is so
And I found
hard.
out, and I found out how she did it. My wife, because
Social engineering.
no,
Well, fair play to her then.
in the sense of every time the limits used to finish on her phone, she'd go, Mom, I need to borrow your phone. And my wife would go, okay, fine.
No question as to why. Just here you go.
Nope. Yep. And she, using my wife's email address, and all of her details, she made this YouTube channel, and I was like, you didn't realize that she was using your email?
Oh,
She's like, I
she
had no idea.
made another YouTube channel.
Yeah. And I just
Look,
thought,
man.
whatever
have-
you do, these kids will always get run round you.
Oh yeah.
But that's a level
yeah.
of creativity. I mean, you could say that it was in somewhat malice, but at the same time, there's thought being put into that.
Yeah. At a certain point, you go, yeah, well played.
Yeah, you don't want to say that out loud, but you're thinking,
Yeah.
man, I didn't even think of that.
There's something that it's actually kind of fascinating to me to see how fundamentally hooked into that my daughter is, where the concept of, and I know it's especially for young women, it's a thing around, physical appearance, and
Yeah.
so much stock is put into it, but this idea that, her and her friends will get together and they'll just make videos of themselves. They'll just like make these like dressing up videos or talking videos, and they have this I forget the name of the app, but it's a video editing app, and they
CapCut.
can
CapCut. Yeah.
CapCut. Yeah,
Yeah.
CapCut. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
And so like
everybody uses
they
CapCut.
Mm-hmm.
and I actually give her props because she makes like really clever videos, and like it depends on the friend. Most of her friends are pretty innocent, like they're not making anything risque or anything like that. But she does have one friend who's kind of like doing the duck lips and the sticking her ass out and that kind of stuff, and like so those videos are always a little on the edge, and I'm like, come on now. But the videos that she makes like with her other friends are really funny. They did this one where it was some voice, some like background voice talking about how to be attractive to the opposite sex, and it was like, dress your best, and then they put on like these ugly clothes, and it was like,
that's a meme,
always
yeah.
make this certain face, and they're like, it
The
is a
trout
meme, but
face.
it was very funny for them to like the way they did it, and like, and I give her a lot of respect because she's just figured out how her only piece of technology. Well, she does have a non-SIM phone, so just Wi-Fi, and then a tablet that she uses. Really, the tablet is pretty old and slow, so really the only thing she does is draw. She makes like art on the tablet, which I give her credit for. But she's figured out using a phone how to like record video, record audio, how to create clips, how to, do text overlay, like how to like fully produced videos on just like this little phone. And I'm like, damn, that's like you're saying, Bill, it's impressive to me to see how she's taken this like modest tool set that I consider to be barely enough, and like just run with it, like she
Yeah.
just
I mean, the
has
videos my
figured.
daughter was making were all animated ones, anime. So she'd
Mm-hmm.
figured out how to draw. She'd also then figured out how to manipulate the drawings to make it look like an
Like animate,
animation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, it would still be like, this is me and this is my friend type of thing, but it would be like that. And yeah, in one sense, it's really kind of, it is ingenious, and, and
Yeah.
as I said, at a certain point you go, well played. But at another point, you're also like, oh my God, man. Whatever you do, you just can't.
It just
control
means
it,
you
can
have to up
Right.
you have to up your sophistication as the
Well, I
parent.
thought I
Yeah.
was sophisticated.
Yeah.
I really thought
You got-
I really thought that I'd done everything.
I fault the Android and iOS, and I fault YouTube, and I fault all these platforms for not thinking of this stuff first. Right? They make it as like a terribly weak bolt-on kind of thing. I mean, even like the Android family stuff, I think is pretty decent. Right? I use for my daughter like the internet or their device locks after like 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And so, what was that?
Oh, everybody's bugging me about getting done.
Okay.
Everybody's no. We've got another hour and a half yet.
Okay.
Before I don't know what.
But anyway, yeah. So like, I have it lock. The phone itself locks at a certain time, and
Yeah.
so she'll do the same thing. She'll go to my wife and she'll be like, "Can I have more time?" But and she'll do it to me too. But the important part there is that I know she's asking for more time. So it's not like, and I usually will give it to her, but I also want her to recognize that there's a certain limit that I find appropriate. And that if you're asking me for more, you have to come to me and you have to give me a reason, like, why? What are you doing? Why do you need extra time? Versus her friends, a lot of her friends just have an open phone. Not only an open phone on Wi-Fi, but an open phone on a cellular connection,
Yeah.
which how the hell do you even control that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we see the thing is that um, the way that my daughter got around it was actually just to not use that and use my wife's phone. That
Right.
was the way that she got
Well,
around
so
it
my
because
daughter, because she doesn't have a SIM and because she doesn't have SMS, she uses my wife's phone to have SMS conversations with her friends. So
mm,
like her phone number is my wife's phone number,
yeah, and
which
so
that limits a certain amount of like, because unless she's completely stupid, she's not going to have a risque or inappropriate conversation on my wife's phone because my wife is going to see it.
you'd hope so
So
anyway.
no, she does, because my wife actually does like look at the
Okay.
messages, and they talk about like some of the interactions. Like my wife's doing a pretty good job of just like being involved, and they say that's like the most important thing, right? It's not necessarily that you're like policing every single thing they do. It's more
Mm,
or less showing the kid that like, hey, I'm interested.
yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
yeah.
know what's happening in your
Engagement, isn't it?
life. Exactly,
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So.
yeah, yeah. I noticed you've got your Pixel Watch on. How are you finding it?
Yes, sir. So my Black Friday purchases have been watch bands and cases and accessories for the watch. I really enjoy it. The only thing I don't like is I thought that I would have a SpO2, like a monitor for oxygen, that I could
Mm-hmm.
just look and see what my saturation is, and it doesn't. It doesn't have
All
it.
right, okay.
It has. I love that it has the heart rate, and I can always just look and see my steps, my heart rate, and like all that stuff. And I'm very happy with it as a device. Like I think it's totally worth the money I paid for it. I enjoy seeing like sleep patterns and like all of this sort
Mm-hmm.
of stuff that it does, the Fitbit kind of stuff. And I like the integration with Android. I like that it had. I love being able to answer my
Phone
phone
calls.
from my wrist.
Yeah,
Like
it is cool,
my
isn't it?
so I've had my arm in the sling, or like my other arm's busy, and so I can literally just go like this and answer it with the tip of my nose. Which
Yeah,
is,
I've done
and
that.
it's,
It's cool. It's
and
cool. I know.
having a wristwatch that you can have a phone call on is very much like a Get Smart, kind of like there was an old TV show where he could talk on his shoe or on, or like the as a gadget, it's a really fun thing that I've found really useful for all of the reasons that I assumed I would. And I
Mm,
really, other than that oxygen sensor thing and being able I still might try to find something that does do that because it's more useful to me if I can see it. But
mm-hmm.
anyway, outside of that, yeah, it's an excellent piece of technology. The size is just right. Um,
How are you
the
finding the
band
battery
is
life?
really comfortable. It's fine. It's 36 to 48 hours depending on what I'm
Okay.
doing with it. And, would I love if it was like indefinite? Sure. Like having to charge it is a thing, but it's also not hard to just throw it on the charger and it
How does it charge?
charges.
Does it have like a charging pad or is it like
It's got that
USB-C?
little disc,
Oh,
the
okay.
little disc with the four prongs on it, the
Okay, okay.
magnetic
Yeah,
disc.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
so, and it's like, from 0 to full charge is like just around an hour.
Okay.
Which, by time you take it off, put it on the charger, and then, get into the bathroom and get, take your shower and shave and everything else, you come back, it's at 90% or whatever. You throw it on and you're good to go for
Mm.
a day and a half or
And because
whatever,
and
two
because
days.
you've got a Pixel as well, I'm sure it works really well with that.
Yeah, of course. It does. It works really well with
But does
Pixel
it need
device.
gadget bridge?
No, not at all.
Thank God.
No, it has I mean, Fitbit is really there is a Google Watch app which lets you play around with like the watch face. So the watch faces themselves are one thing, and there's colors and different customizations, but then each of the like little areas you can actually customize to like show different things. So if you want your step counter to be up here or down there, or like wherever near weather here, and like so all these little areas are programmable and customizable.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an app. So instead of having to sit there and dick around on your watch to do it, there's an app on the phone that you can do it with, and you can set up notifications and different stuff like that. So you've got that Google app that handles all of that stuff, the integration basically with your phone. And then you've got Fitbit, which is all of the step tracking, the sleep tracking, the calories, the workouts. You know, if you're running or walking or lifting weights, they've got like 150 different types of workouts, which is like badminton. Like, okay, you say so. But yeah, it's a really it's a
it's
much
funny you
more.
mentioned badminton. Actually, I've got a funny story about that. But anyway, keep going.
Okay, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, it's just you see, there are many things that I think to myself. You know what? I'm now, I'm a little bit fitter than I used to be. Let me try doing this. Let me try doing that. So I tried badminton. What a disaster that was. I, it was just, if you were to get a drunk bear, right, and blindfold him and get him to play badminton, he probably would have better hand-eye coordination than I did when I was doing badminton.
It's just volleyball with a shuttlecock, isn't it?
Depends on who's playing.
The lack of prowess that I had would startle you to the
Love to
extent
see
that you
that.
might start getting worried of this
So-
guy's a doctor.
Yeah. The thing about badminton is that it's deceiving, it's deceptive because you hit this thing really hard and you can make it go fast, but you can also hit it to where it just barely moves. And so timing is a huge factor
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
because you have a pretty small racket and the timing is really everything. And I had a group of friends that we really got into it when I was in grade school and high school. And like I wish we would have had a team because we really got into it, like diving and like going really nuts. And like we chose to play it in the backyard, like that was our fun, you know, sport that we played in the yard. And yeah, we got really into it. So it's one of those games where you can just like very leisurely, like kind of like play, but then you can also like really get.
You're always going to
hardcore
have that
and-
one dickhead that.
Oh, of course. Spike.
Yeah, in your face.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Face. Yeah, no, and we and you had that, but it was just that's kind of what was cool about it is it's like, and tennis is kind of the same way. Like I enjoyed tennis and I enjoyed badminton. Tennis you can just like sort of softly lob it back and forth, or you can get into a heated game where you're like literally like wailing at each other, you know. So anyway, yes, supposedly somehow I guess it's tracking like your swings or I don't know whatever it's doing, but yeah, it's got rowing, it's got like all these different stationary cycling, you know. But anyways, so in terms of a product, based on what I've read about the Pixel 1 and 2 series, this is the one where they've kind of got like a a real handle on like what a smartwatch is and like how it should behave and how it should like function. So I'm really happy with it. Yeah.
Do you have a smartwatch, Bill? Because you've been getting into fitness as well, haven't you?
Well, I've still got my Pine Time.
Oh, okay. You're still using that,
Yeah.
and it's not died yet.
No, it hasn't. I've not had any problems with it. It still charges and lasts for a week. It's still. I mean, it lacks the features that Eric was describing in that Pixel watch.
So I mean, with Black Friday sales and stuff like that, and every year Black Friday gets worse, as in the deals aren't as good as they were the year before. But one thing that does seem to consistently be something that I end up getting is a smartwatch of some description, and so I've ordered the CMF watch. I remember we talked about it, Eric,
Mm-hmm.
before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was down. It was down to $50, I think. So
Nice.
I thought, oh, let me try that out. So that's only been my only real Black Friday purchase, really. I did see some good deals on laptops, but I don't need any more laptops. If I
God,
did,
no.
I might get one of these, but
You know,
uh,
I was joking, like, so what I did end up doing was I wanted to try some different bands. Like this band that it comes with is actually really ingenious. It's a really clever, very comfortable band, how it sort of tucks under. Yeah, super comfortable. Which, a lot of times a watch might start like you like fidget with and stuff. This I just leave and it doesn't bother me one bit. But
mhm.
I just wanted to try like a fabric one that has a little stretch to it, and I wanted to try the Atlas hook kind that, like, it has a
Mhm.
little. So I got a couple different bands just to try because they were on sale, and I mean we're talking like $6, $7 a piece. These aren't like, the official Google ones are. The leather one is $70 for the
Well,
band, and
Is it just a
the metal one
standard
is
20 millimeter type?
it's not, isn't
no,
it?
it
It's a
has a speed
proprietary one, isn't it?
connect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it has this really and it's pretty, it feels pretty janky to me, frankly. Like I'm gonna break it whenever I'm putting it on and
so
off.
I
But
remember when I had a Galaxy Watch 4, 5, whichever Galaxy Watch I had, I can't remember. I've had a bunch of them, so I can't remember which was the last one. But when I had that one, it had the standard, what is it, the 20 millimeter band,
hmm
the
hmm
like normal watch band things. So I bought a whole ton of different ones for that. And I
gotcha.
had a leather one, and I managed to get a metal one as well. And um, that was one thing I definitely appreciated about uh, that I could just change the band and change up the look. The reason I
Well,
got rid of
so
it was the reason I got rid of it was the reason that I've always got a bit annoyed with Galaxy watches, which is the battery life just isn't good enough for me. And I know what you're saying; it's not too, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
no,
And
everybody
well,
has said that the 24 hours. I mean, the Galaxy watches are just notoriously terrible for their
yeah, and the
battery
thing
life.
about it is that the charging isn't. This is why I was asking about how you charge your Pixel Watch, because the way that the Galaxy watches charge is that they have their own puck, magnetic puck, right? And
hmm
it basically does wireless charging through it. you know so
Okay.
it's not the quickest anyway, but more the problem is it's very easy to knock the watch off, just slight
Mm,
movement off it and it's not on it. So then you've put it on the charger, you then come in the morning, say you put it on in the night because you're very diligent, right?
mm.
And it's still dead because at some point it got knocked slightly and it's come off the table or whatever it might be.
Jeez.
And I mean, the one cool thing was when I had a Galaxy S24, I was able to do the reverse wireless charging thing.
hmm hmm
I mean, that was painfully slow as well, but the fact that I could do it was
I've
something.
heard that. Yeah, I've heard it's really slow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had it on for 20 minutes and it went up 10% or something.
Well,
So
yeah, I've been so like I said, I mean, I've just everything has been really smooth and I've really enjoyed it. Oh, so the other thing I had to get was there was a pair of so I'm curious to see they have really good ratings. It's the Amazon Echo Buds. So
yes.
it's just their earbuds. The one consistent complaint is that they are like planned obsolescence manifest, like where if they're supposed to last a year, they last 13 months, and then they literally stop charging, and
That's
like
awesome.
so yeah. But people say like during that 12 months that they are amazing. They sound great, and they were $24. I was like, okay, well I'm gonna at least try a pair, which is it's half price. It's a 50% off because they're usually 50. So, and I love my earbuds. So yeah, I had to try a different pair of those. But I mean, I talked to my wife earlier this morning because it's like I feel like all year long I make a list of Black Friday things that I want to buy or Cyber Monday, and then every year comes and I'm like, didn't I have something I was gonna get? And most times it's not a big deal, but sometimes it's like, oh man, I forgot and I should have gotten that because now I want it and it's back to normal price.
Yeah, earbuds is also something that I often seem to end up buying. The latest ones I've bought are these Sennheiser ones, which were again reduced Black Friday and whatever. Although that was an early Black Friday sales at the beginning of the month I bought it. Um, I thought that my ears weren't good enough to be able to tell the difference between, higher quality earbuds and higher quality codecs and stuff like that. Evidently, I'm wrong. I can tell the difference because
Yeah.
these definitely, especially with Tidal playing Flax, even
Mm,
over a
hmm.
Bluetooth connection, but using aptX Audio
Yeah.
HD or whatever I could tell the difference. And so, like, I've cancelled my Spotify subscription now, for example, and my YouTube Music one because I quite like this rich audio HD that I'm getting through.
Well, I was surprised at how much difference the Bluetooth codecs make.
Yes, they do.
So, I actually got aptX. So originally I didn't have, I did like the SBC one or whatever.
SBC is the standard. AAC is well, okay, no. SBC is the first one, basically.
Hmm.
AAC is the Apple one, which everybody supports because everybody wants to be able to work with an iPhone, and
Okay.
that is technic, and that I think goes up to 320 kilobits. I want to say. Um, in basically, it's decent, is the point. And if you've got Spotify or YouTube Music, you won't be able to get much better anyway. But when you do get the high res codecs that are like LDAC, aptX
Hmm.
audio, all this kind of stuff, and you have a decent bit rate of the track that you're listening to. So,
Yeah.
because Apple has a
What
lossless
is what is
tier.
that, like 300 some? Like what is a
Okay,
solid bit rate?
okay. So Spotify goes up to 320, right?
Okay.
YouTube Music only goes up to 256, and I can tell
Okay.
it. I can tell the difference now.
You
Now
can
that
hear it now. Okay.
I can
Yeah.
hear it. They just sound compressed. Tidal will theoretically go all the way up to CD quality, so which is
Oh,
what
okay.
um one was it 1911 something like that, something
Pretty high,
ridiculously
pretty
high.
high. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now it will tell you that um to get the best, you need wired earphones with a DAC or with a 3.5. The app will tell you, right? And it will tell you if it is compressing it or whatever. But still, I mean, if you even if you don't go all the way up to that, their normal tier is supposed to be what 24-bit, 192 kilohertz.
Okay.
Which I need to convert back into thingy, but yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
Yeah, high-res FLAC is a distinction we make for free lossless audio codec FLAC file that is greater than 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz. High-res FLAC on Tidal can deliver superior sound in files as large as 24-bit 192 kilohertz. Um, so it's good, is the point. And it will tell you if, like, for example, you put on a track and you're listening to it on Bluetooth. It will say on the bottom that this is being compressed as it's going through Bluetooth. But it still sounded better to me than because I did do some side by side. I did get listen to a track on YouTube Music, listen to a track on Spotify, listen to a track on Tidal. Now you could say I'm looking for it, and so maybe that's why I'm noticing it. But I could
Hmm.
tell the difference. And as I said, I thought I didn't have the hearing to do it. I thought my hearing wasn't good enough, but evidently I can.
Well, I know mine is definitely not. I mean, I've had some at the point now where my wife had car problems where it was making squeaking sounds, and she's like, "Can you hear that?" It was a serpentine belt and something something. I'm like, I don't hear a thing. Like I literally had it, whatever frequency that was not coming through. And so I don't know that I would necessarily need or care about the bit rate itself. Below a certain point, I'm sure I would notice. And I do have some older stuff that I ripped from CDs that the quality just isn't very good. But I've noticed that for me, it's more about the hardware, the device itself, and then like I was saying, the Bluetooth codec.
Yeah,
And yeah, if I can get aptX, like that stuff, to me, that is like the gold standard right now, based on the equipment I have. Like
yeah,
it sounds really good. I have these Tozo buds, and I don't even know what the model is, but it's a really nice little chunky, and it's got a pretty sizable driver, to the point where with the soundstage on and with a little bit of bass boost, like it's pretty damn convincing in terms of like a headphone setup. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
going to be as good as an over the ear like large diaphragm driver, you know, but it's from just like sitting here and having the convenience of no wires and being able to get up and move around and stuff, like it's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And so, and these are $20, you know. So it's I waited a long time for the generations of these products to get forward, you know, to move forward enough that even on the lower end, you can start hearing the improvements in the audio quality, the you know, that the better quality drivers, the better quality, you know, higher versions of Bluetooth, because the 5.1, 5.2, like that, you know, they last for a long time. They're pushing a lot of sound, a lot of fidelity. The distance that you can travel between, you know, the device and I mean, it just keeps getting better and better. And because not only does the Bluetooth standard keep getting better, but then these lower priced devices keep getting better. Like, actually, I was going to get, I think they were JBLs, but they were like highly recommended. But then I had a lot of people the reviews were basically like, these used to be great. Now they've cost cut on them, and you know they're not as good as they used to be. Because they're like $129 or something for just for earbuds. And I mean, I've been so happy with like my $20 to $40 range, you know, earbuds, and that
I
shouldn't
do
be
find
good.
it. I do find it's diminishing returns in me. In that, I find, for example, if you were to get £50 earbuds, they would be generally much better than £20 earbuds. If you get £100 earbuds, they are better than £50 ones, but it's less. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's a smaller gain. Then when you go up from like
Yeah,
100 to 150, which I think is the maximum I've ever spent on, yeah, is yes, they're better again,
but
but
even
now it's
less
not.
proportionally.
But yeah, but it's like, okay, are these 3 times better than the £50 ones? That it's like,
yeah,
no, they're not. You know, and
yeah,
so but you think the thing about codecs is interesting, because I always used to think that the LDAC, which was Sony's one, right, would be the best, and they were pushing it quite a lot. But this Qualcomm aptX one really does, I think, sound better.
yeah,
You know, which is just interesting. Most of my earbuds, most expensive earbuds I ever bought was some Sony XM4s, and I think I talked about it when we did the Renerds on Mincast, that they sounded great, but they were just, I just couldn't. They were too uncomfortable for me to wear them for anything longer than like half an hour. So what's the
yeah.
point of having great sounding earbuds if you
Oh,
can't keep them in your ears?
those Jabras you turned me on to have turned. I mean, they're the only ones I use for anything now. I got all these other ones laying around
Yeah,
doing.
The Jabra ones are probably some of the most comfortable ones I ever wore. It's
I can
almost like
just
they're not
stuff
there.
them in my ear, and I don't have to. I mean, other ones I've had to like reach around, pull my ear, and get it in there to where you know you get it in, and then like I don't know, moving your face or whatever will kind of
Which
Yeah,
work
ones
yeah,
are
them
yeah.
these?
back out. Uh, he turned me on to the Jabra. What are the
Was
threes?
it the eight? Was it the eight? Was it the? It was the Jabra
Elite
Elite.
Elite threes. Now they've got like
Yeah,
an they're up to a 10 now,
yeah, they're up to 10, but I think this was the.
but the
I think yours.
three
I thought yours was the four. I thought
I
yours was
don't
the four.
I don't think so. I think now I can tell you right now, but they were just literally the first ones I've ever been able to just grab out of the thing and shove them in my ears, and it comes with the little app, you know, that you can use
Hmm.
it or you don't have to if you don't want to, but you get a little bit
Yeah.
more control over it if you do. And it's got tactile buttons on it. Cuz
Yes. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
It's
other thing that
clicky
irritates me.
buttons. Yeah.
Yeah, is the fact that you're, you
Gotcha.
know, when you are messing with these things, you accidentally hit the little button, and God knows what functionality you invoke when you tap on it two or three times, and the next thing you know, you're calling up your mom and she's hearing you cuss these things out. Uh, and
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna have to check. I'm gonna check which ones it was that you got because I can't remember which ones I
yeah,
recommended.
Jabra Elite 3 in ear wireless earbuds.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I had them. I had them. I gave them as a gift to somebody and regretted it afterwards. Not
Eh,
So are
because
the elite?
not because I didn't want to give a gift, but it was they were very good. They
Now
were
they're
very good.
$43. I mean, they're not cheap, they're not expensive. They're
No,
kind
that.
of a happy medium, I think. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
But are
for
the
the
so
price,
are
they're
they
good.
better? You wouldn't recommend the fives or the fours or anything like
I
that,
think
or I
that
mean,
I don't know. These are the ones he sent me, so that's the ones that I ordered. But
I think the thing about Jabra, unfortunately, is the fact that because they are coming out of the earbud game, you know, the 10, the Elite 10 is their last one, and they've said that they're not going to continue, right?
mhm.
It means that you get some really good deals, but you have to be aware of that fact that they're not, the support might not be great. So then there's a question of, well, how much do you want to spend on something which might not be supported for a long time? So, for example, as an example, if you were to go on, I mean, I'm just checking on Amazon now at the moment. You can get the Jabra Elite 5s, which have noise cancellation. It's reduced from 150 down to £80 for Black Friday. That's a
so
very good deal,
well, and the
right?
tens are $150.
Yeah. Now the tens are
Mm.
down from 230 to 140. Now, when you're now spending double what you are for the Elite Fives, bearing in mind that both of these are going to be out of support soon because Jabra have said they're not going to, uh, you know, they're out of the game now,
Of course
right?
they
It's
are.
not what you know. Then you then think to yourself, well, actually, that extra money is important now, isn't it? Because you don't want to buy something and then 12 months later it's a dud because you know something's happened and the company's not updating it anymore. So I would, and plus the other thing, sorry, is just to mention that Jabra has had very good passive noise cancellation. So even so, I think you don't necessarily need to have active noise cancellation. I like put it this way: I if I hadn't have known that they were only passively noise cancelling, I would have thought it was active noise cancellation. They've got such a good fit,
Yeah, that's the
and that's why
thing.
it's such a
They seal in there and they stay put, even through a pretty intense workout. You know, they'll
yeah,
stay put because they're shaped right. They're not
yeah.
just symmetrical design with the speaker coming out of a spout on the
It's
bottom. You know, they're
it's such a
shaped like a
shame that
human
they've come
ear.
out. It's such a shame that they've come out of the market. Really, you know, they made some really good things. Do you know what I
Well, let's
mean?
hope the universe abhors a vacuum and something else is as good, in my
Well, I think
opinion.
it says something that they're still selling them, right? Because I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
companies like the stock is just it dries up, and then they basically starve it to the where it's okay. They stop making them now. It's fours, and now you got to get fives and sixes, and like
Yeah.
the fact that you can still go on Amazon and get new stock Jabra Elite threes for 42.99 is like okay, that's kind of interesting. The fours are 59, so 60. They're an extra $15.
Yeah. The
I mean, I
fives
guess
are and the fives have the aptex codec as well.
okay.
So so
So yeah, I mean, I kind of think like the fact that they still have all of the they must have enough differentiation between the generations that some people prefer a certain one over the other. Because yeah, like the fives are $80, so they're
mm,
you know $20 more than the fours.
mm. I
Um,
th- I mean, as I said, I think you know they make good ones, and I think Jabra do the way that they've looked at their headphone game has been like the Samsung way of mobile phones, have something at every price point, you know, and
mhm.
then and you know people will rather than just having just premium or just budget, something at every little bit along the way, so that you know I suppose you could argue maybe it's not the best business sense. I don't know, but I think that's. It seems to me that's the way their business model has been. and that's why they've got so many different devices. And obviously, the wider number of devices you've got, your sales of a particular SKU are always going to be a bit lower, aren't they? Because you've got such a massive variety. If you only had one,
Hmm.
then everybody's just going to buy that one, isn't it? So
It's like the iPhone
fit.
market.
Yeah,
You would have to be laser focused on one particular niche of the marketplace, and then know that you are basing your entire business model on that particular niche of the market. You're not trying to make something for every price point like these are. I can see how it would be a challenge to have an offering at every single price point like that, and I don't want to say that it's the reason why they've gotten out of the business is because the challenge got to be a bit much. I don't know, but that does seem to be what they're doing, and it is Samsung's way of doing things is to offer something. If you want a $60
Hmm.
smartphone, you can get a $60 smartphone. You want a $2,000 smartphone, you can have that too.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely
I mean,
that is the range
the
of it.
Chinese. I mean, and the Chinese brands have really. I mean, a lot of those devices don't come to the West. But again, when I was in India, literally at every 50, the equivalent of every $50 increment, there was another device.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And sometimes the differences were very subtle. It would be like, oh, this one's got the same processor and that one's got the same processor, but this one's screens is 120 hertz and the other one is 90 hertz. So they're still both fast. But do you know what I mean? It's I suppose whatever works, I suppose, in it. Whatever keeps it works as a business. I'm
Yep.
very conscious that we've gone on for a very long time now. This is going to be the longest OTC, I think, on
Yeah, I
record.
was just
I
thinking that too.
think maybe we should
Yeah.
wrap it up.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about what
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about.
No, we never got into the top. But I think we were kind of going positive there, and I could have segued it one way or the other. And a couple times I thought about it. We did have a topic.
The usual negativity will be back in the next exciting
Yeah,
episode
it would have
of
gotten
OTC.
this topic I want to bring up and talk about is kind of dark in a way, and I don't know, maybe
Dark and scary.
yeah, maybe it would be better to have Leo here for that too, because he's got a way a way of taking the darkness and throwing a firecracker in the middle of it. I don't know.
He's just a ray of sunshine.
But we won't ruin it by mentioning it. But we do have a topic we want to get into. We'll save it for next time, maybe, or maybe we'll forget about it altogether. God knows.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, I've been Bill.
I've been Eric.
And I'm not doing it.
Oh, so you're the one
Be
now.
that way.
Yeah,
Boom,
be that
boom.
way. See you, folks.